Just hand them the condo key, sweetie. It's a symbol of love. That's what my mother said in front of 150 guests, right after a video tribute that didn't include a single photo of me. I was standing under a spotlight at my brother's 40th birthday, holding a monogrammed gift. What did I get in return? A name tag that said +1, a napkin folded like it had given up, and a champagne bottle to the side of my head. But that wasn't even the worst part. While I was still bleeding, they were already scheduling a showing for my condo, without telling me. They had a spare key. They had a plan. They just didn't count on me having the deed. If you've ever been treated like a guest in the life you helped build, drop a number 1 in the comments. If not, count your blessings. Drop a number 0. Because sometimes it's not revenge. It's just finally choosing you. You think just because you gave me life, you get to own it too? That's what I should have said. Instead, I stood at the edge of the ballroom, my guest badge pulling slightly at the fabric of my dress, and watched as the video montage ended with a flourish of gold cursive, a legacy in the making. The applause was polite, expected, almost scripted. I clapped once, twice, then lowered my hands and smoothed my skirt with a palm that wouldn't stop trembling. I hadn't planned on speaking tonight. I hadn't planned on being anything more than an accessory, evidently not even a named one. Now, Delora chirped, stepping into the spotlight with a grin perfected over decades of PTA meetings and church galas. A few words from the ever-thoughtful little sister. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about honoring Lazero. This was about me playing my assigned role, silent, grateful, erased. I stepped forward anyway. The mic was slightly too tall. The spotlight is slightly too bright. From the podium, I could see dozens of eyes, and not a single warm one. Lazero was smiling at his plate. Thessaly sat beside him, legs crossed, unmoved. Orville, my father, lounged back with arms folded, nodding like he was watching the end of a play he wrote. "It's a beautiful night," I began, my voice steady even as my spine screamed to flee. "And Lazero, you've always had a gift for making rooms light up." The sentence hung in the air like a truce I didn't agree to. Then Delora interrupted me with a laugh that made the back of my neck tighten. "Oh, honey," she said, turning to the crowd like we were sharing an inside joke. "Wouldn't it be the perfect gift if she handed them the condo key tonight?" Laughter rippled, uncertain. Not amused, confused. I blinked. "What?" Delora beamed. "The condo in Austin, sweetheart. The one you're always traveling away from. It's not like you need all that space, and Lazero and Thessaly are just starting out. It makes perfect sense." Orville added, louder. "It's just a formality, Kez. You're not even using the guest room." My skin turned to ice. I looked out into the crowd, people I hadn't seen in years, some I didn't recognize. No one looked surprised. Some looked expectant. "This wasn't agreed on," I said into the mic, louder this time. A ripple of gasps. A few exchanged glances. One woman near the back whispered too loudly, "She's not going to say no here, is she?" Delora's smile hardened. "Don't be dramatic, darling. It's just a gesture of love." I heard Thessaly shift, looked her way. She didn't meet my eyes. Orville's voice dropped into warning range. "We gave you everything." I stared at them, the family that had called me selfish for moving away, that edited me out of group photos, that now wanted my home as tribute. My voice was calm, clear. "If you think silence is loyalty, you raised the wrong daughter." And then I stepped back. 3 steps. That's all I managed before I saw Orville standing by the dessert table, eyes locked on mine, lips pressed into a grim line. Delora hovered behind him, whispering something sharp. She just embarrassed us, she hissed, not low enough to avoid being heard. Orville turned. I hoped, he was reaching for another glass. He wasn't. The bottle of champagne caught me just above the temple. There was a crack, a flash, then white. The room dissolved into blurred lights and scattered gasps. I heard someone say, "Did he just—" Another voice, filming. "Keep rolling!" I staggered sideways, blood hot and wet down my cheek. My knees buckled, but I didn't fall. Not fully, not enough for them. "You ungrateful brat!" Dolores screamed. "We brought you into our home!" I didn't reply. I couldn't. I pressed my palm to my head, steadying myself on the nearest table. The napkin there was shaped like a swan, crumpled and half-folded. I straightened it with shaking fingers. Reflex. Like if I could make one thing perfect, maybe I still belonged. Someone muttered, "Call the cops." No one moved. No one stepped forward, not even Lazaro. He looked down at his plate like it had secrets. Thessali's fingers tightened around his arm, but didn't rise to mine. And so I walked. Past the stairs, past the whispers, past the woman who shielded her daughter's eyes. Out the door, into the dark. No one followed. No music played. The valet didn't meet my gaze as he handed me my keys. I got into my car, turned the ignition, and drove without looking in the rearview mirror. When I got home, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I sat on the floor beside my couch and unwrapped the gift I brought for Lazaro, the monogrammed pen set. I placed it in the trash without ceremony. Then my phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown number. "Hi, Ms. Kazaya. This is Jeanette from HomeQuest Realty. Just confirming the 2 p.m. condo walkthrough appointment. We'll use the lockbox unless otherwise directed." I stared at the screen, blood drying along my jaw. They didn't just want to humiliate me. They were already trying to erase me. Legally, physically, entirely. "You almost stole it with a smile. Almost." I whispered that to no one as I stared at my phone, rereading the realtor's text for the third time. "Hi, Ms. Kazaya. This is Jeanette from HomeQuest Realty. Just confirming the 2 p.m. condo walkthrough appointment. We'll use the lockbox unless otherwise directed." My scalp still throbbed beneath the gauze, and I hadn't slept more than 4 hours since the party. I was still reeling, still raw. Yet somehow, while I was curled up on my friend Leah's couch, blood dried on my temple, head pounding, they'd scheduled a tour of my home. I clutched the phone tighter, the plastic case creaking faintly. A soft towel lay folded on the armrest beside me. Leah had left it there along with a mug of tea and a phone charger. Simple kindness. No strings attached. I hadn't touched any of it. Instead, I dumped my bag out onto the bed. Wallet, lip balm, 2 receipts, my old university lanyard. The backup condo key? Not there. Panic flickered, then settled into something colder. A week ago, after dinner in Westlake, Orville had taken my purse by mistake, or so he claimed. "Thought it was your mother's," he'd said, handing it back with an absent-minded grin. I hadn't thought anything of it. Until now. Until I realized that was the exact moment they'd breached me. I pulled up Marlo Steinberg's contact and hit called. He answered on the second ring, his voice calm, clipped. "Kazaya." "I need to talk," I said. "Now." His office was on the 10th floor of a glass building downtown, all metal and clean lines. His name was printed in raised silver on the door. M. Steinberg, Civil Law and Property. Inside, the air smelled of eucalyptus and dry paper. "You were right to call," Marlo said after I told him everything. He wore no tie, just a crisp shirt and confidence that didn't need accessories. "They've been co-signed on older financing paperwork, but the deed is yours. Always has been. He pulled a file from the desk and tapped the corner. You refinanced in 2017 under your name alone. They never transferred it back from their temporary access post-foreclosure rescue. I blinked. So they have no claim? Not legal ones, he replied. But people like them don't rely on legal. They rely on proximity, pressure, and assumption. My throat tightened. What do I do first? He leaned back in his chair, steepled fingers. First, change the locks. Then, we prepare to escalate. On the shelf behind him sat a tarnished gold trophy, Mock Trial National Finalist, 2003. I stared at it a second longer than I meant to. He caught my glance. I've been dealing with family asset disputes for 2 decades, he said quietly. You'd be surprised how many start with a borrowed key. The locksmith arrived by 5:40 p.m. He wore dark overalls, smelled like copper and oil, and didn't ask questions. You said someone may have access? He asked, crouching by the door. I nodded. They had a key. They weren't supposed to. He examined the knob. Yep, scratches. Looks like someone fumbled trying different keys. I felt sick. Change everything. Deadbolt too. You got it. While he worked, I leaned against the wall across the narrow hallway. The light above flickered slightly, casting shadow lines across my legs. From the corner apartment, a dog barked once. Downstairs, someone slammed a door. Halfway through, a woman from Unit 10A peeked her head out, gray bun tight, curiosity sharper than her eyeliner. Are you that Sullivan girl? She asked, eyes narrowing. I straightened. Excuse me? The one from the party video. I didn't answer. She sniffed. Well, your mama always did like to play gracious hostess. Guess that don't extend to real estate. She ducked back inside before I could reply. I looked away, hands fisting. Inside the locksmith's van, just barely visible through the open door, was a sticker that read, "Keep the key to yourself." I stared at it. A warning. Or maybe a lesson. By 7 p.m., the locks were changed. The deadbolt clicked crisply into place, final and satisfying. The locksmith handed me 2 new keys in a tiny zippered pouch. If they try again, he said, you call me. We can go digital next. Thanks, I said, and meant it. When he left, I didn't go inside immediately. Instead, I turned to face the hallway and stared at the door. My door, my space, my sanctuary they had tried to pry open like a box they thought was already theirs. I placed my palm against the cool metal, breathed deep, then said under my breath, just loud enough for myself, "This is mine. Not theirs, not anymore." The text arrived just after I'd made tea and sat down. From Delora Sullivan. No emojis, no dramatic punctuation. Keziah, we love you. This has gone far enough. Come by the house tomorrow afternoon, just us. No lawyers, let's fix this. Mom. I stared at the message for a long time. Not because I believed her, but because I already knew. They weren't trying to fix anything. They were staging another performance, and this time I'd be ready. If love requires a signature, it was never love to begin with. I thought of that as I stood outside their front door again. The porch was too clean. Solar lights lined the flower beds like tiny soldiers. The swing creaked once in the breeze, then went still. There was no warmth here, just design. Delora opened the door before I could knock. Keziah, she cooed, arms outstretched. Thank you for coming. Her perfume hit first, floral, cloying, too strong, like she was trying to mask something. Inside, the living room had been curated, not cleaned. Orchids in bloom sat on the coffee table beside a tray of shortbread cookies I hadn't seen since high school. Framed photos were carefully arranged, One of me and Laziro at the lake, another from my high school debate finals. Photos they hadn't displayed in years. The lighting was perfect, warm, diffused, artificial. Laziro sat on the arm of the sofa, lips in a tight line. He looked up briefly, but didn't speak. Orville entered next, holding a manila envelope like it was an offering. "We've been thinking," he began, "about how to keep things fair, so no one gets hurt again." He handed it to me. I didn't take it. "Just paperwork?" Delora added, sitting primly. "A formality." My eyes drifted to the table runner, ivory linen with a repeating embroidery that read family in cursive. I touched it lightly, tracing one of the stitched words. "Sit, sweetheart," Delora offered, pouring tea. She poured the wrong cup. Mine had no sugar, always had. But she poured into the floral porcelain Laziro usually used. A small detail, but telling. I remained standing. I opened the envelope. Inside was a thick document printed on cream paper, the header vague. Internal Property Realignment Agreement. I flipped through quickly. Language neutral but binding. Page 5 referenced a clause that transferred full rights to secondary family beneficiaries for the sake of equitable restructuring. In bold at the bottom, signature required to finalize. "You're asking me to give up the condo," I said. Orville didn't blink. "It's just a house," Delora smiled. "You don't even need that space. You're alone." "Exactly," Orville added. "You're just one person." I stared at them. The same people who once begged me to co-sign that loan, who edited me out of group family emails, who now asked me to quietly disappear. I looked at the coffee table. One photo had fallen, face down. I flipped it over. It was me, a college graduate, standing beside Laziro, holding a diploma Delora once called cute but not real. I set the photo upright. Then I set the envelope beside it. "This isn't peace," I said. "It's a performance." Delora's lips thinned. "Kazaya, families share everything. Why are you being so selfish?" I didn't raise my voice. "Because I finally learned that sharing with you means losing everything." Orville's jaw tightened. "You don't need to make this ugly." I met his eyes. "If I sign this, you don't win. You erase me. Again." He stepped forward like he might argue. Or intimidate. I held his gaze until he stepped back. "Have you ever discovered that the people who raised you also tried to erase you? The kind of silence that's not innocent, but chosen. If you've ever been kept in the dark by those who should have protected you, leave a comment number 7 below. Now, let's see what she does next." Then I picked up the envelope, tore it down the middle, and let the halves flutter onto the tray of cookies like confetti at a funeral. Delora flinched for the first time. Not dramatically, not loudly, but it was real. Her mask slipped just enough to see the fury underneath. Laziro exhaled, still silent, and looked away. I stood a moment longer, letting the silence settle like dust. Then I turned. No dramatic exit, no slam door. Just the quiet sound of heels across hardwood, one step at a time, away from the only version of love they had to offer. As I reached the sidewalk, my phone buzzed. A text. From a number I didn't recognize. "You should see what your brother just posted." I opened the link. A video. Me on stage at the party, voice trembling, saying, "This wasn't agreed on." Spliced between images of Laziro smiling, me frowning, balloons floating. Captioned, "When family stops being supportive and starts being selfish." Thousands of views, comments piling in. "Ungrateful." She ruined the vibe. Bet she's jealous of his success. They weren't done erasing me, but I was just getting started. See, if they rewrite the story, I'll publish the truth. I didn't whisper it this time. I said it aloud, sitting cross-legged on my couch, laptop glowing cold blue against my skin. No candles, no music, just the quiet hum of electricity and the weight of clarity. The video had reached over 800,000 views by now. Lazero's edited clip, where my voice cracked on stage, was now a meme. The comment section was a bonfire. She looks jealous AF. Imagine ruining your brother's moment like that. She needs therapy, not a condo. And all of it? A lie. I didn't cry. I clicked open a folder on my desktop titled simply, Receipts. It had been building itself for years. Wire transfers, text threads, audio files, screenshots, and one email I could never forget. From Delora, dated January 14th, 2023. Keziah, your father's business is going through a rough audit. Just this once. Could you cover the mortgage so we don't fall behind? I'll pay you back within 2 months. You're such a blessing to this family. The repayment never came. What did arrive months later was a Christmas gift labeled "From all of us" that was clearly regifted. A cookie tin, still sealed. I added the email to a new Dropbox folder. I titled it, Truth I Dragged in Everything. A photo of the original condo deed, with only my name. The voice memo from Delora begging, just this one time, sweetheart. Screenshots of Lazero asking, can you front us another 5K? We'll double it once the firm closes its next deal. A video snippet pulled from an old Google Drive backup. Orville calling me the family leftover during a holiday gathering. And finally, a private message I'd received hours ago from an unknown account. I used to work for your father. He lied to more than just you. I'm willing to testify if needed. I didn't even flinch. I dragged the message into the folder. Then I hit share. The public link blinked back at me. No hashtags, no dramatic title. I posted it quietly on my page. If you care to see it. The first comment came within minutes. Wait, she funded his startup? A second one below it. This voicemail is wild. That's her mom? Within an hour, the reposts began. The tone shifted. People started quoting my voice memo back to Delora. Just this once. Someone slowed down Orville's voice in the holiday clip. The family leftover was now a TikTok audio trend, with people stitching in their own stories. Delora deactivated her Facebook. Lazero deleted the original video. Orville's LinkedIn mysteriously went offline. I watched none of it. Instead, I sat still, letting the glow of the laptop wash over me. Then the phone rang. Marlowe. I answered without a word. I saw the folder, he said. You timed it well. They started it, I replied. You just ended the first act, he said. But there's more. Remember that house they're still living in? Yes. He hesitated, then. You still own the deed. I blinked. That's not possible. You bought it in 2010, he confirmed. Foreclosure rescue. They never filed the transfer back. They've been living there on assumption. It's legally yours. My mind raced, not out of vengeance, out of precision. I gave them shelter, I said flatly. They turned it into a weapon. I could hear him smile faintly. Are you ready to take it back? I stared at the open Dropbox folder on my screen. Each file a wound. Each wound is now visible. Yes, I said. File the eviction. And just like that, the silence wasn't a prison anymore. It was strategy. Have you ever been pushed aside, only to be needed later, when it's convenient? That quiet ache when you realize you were never part of us, just part of the solution. If you understand that kind of hurt, leave a comment number 9 below. Now, let's see how I fight back, on my terms. I closed the laptop, but didn't move from the couch. The screen had gone dark, yet my reflection remained, eyes sharper than they used to be. My phone lit up. Incoming call. Mom. I watched it ring. Once. Twice. Then I let it die. No voicemail followed, just the kind of silence you weaponize when words no longer work. This wasn't the first time she'd tried to reach out after I'd acted. Only this time, I wasn't that girl who scrambled to return missed calls. This time, I let the silence speak for me. I got up, poured myself a glass of water, then paused at the fridge. On its side, held by an old magnet, was a sticky note I hadn't touched in years. It simply read, Kez, hang in there, we'll figure it out. D. I almost tore it down. Instead, I left it. Not as a keepsake, as evidence. Back at the couch, a memory surfaced without warning. Thanksgiving, 2019. I had offered to bring sweet potatoes. Instead, I came home to find myself missing from the Sullivan's Giving Thanks group chat. Lazero said it was a technical mistake. Delora said nothing. Later, I found out they'd created a new thread without me. All because I refused Venmo $1,200 to help send cousin Maxine's son to summer STEM camp. You're in tech, Orville had said. It's basically your industry's duty. That was when the erasure began. Quiet, surgical, but definitely. A notification pinged from my social tab. A comment on the link I'd shared. Hey, I judged her way too quickly. This evidence is solid. I was wrong. I'm sorry, Keziah. At Bex Reads Books, I blinked. Unexpectedly. Then came another comment, the flip side. Lol, this is convenient. Anyone can fake a voice memo. Where's the full context? At Truth Hunters 73. Of course. For every voice that changed sides, another clung to Delora's fantasy. Because it was easier to believe I was bitter than admit they'd watched a golden family unravel in real time. But this time, I didn't feel the need to win everyone. Just enough. I refreshed the page. The folder had been downloaded over 13,000 times in less than 3 hours. Some people didn't need convincing. They just needed permission to doubt. You wanted me out of the family. Now you're out of the house. I signed the final page without hesitation. The pen didn't waver. The ink didn't smudge. When I handed it back across the polished table, Marlowe gave a small nod. Not of approval, but of acknowledgement. Like a surgeon stepping back after removing a tumor. It's official, he said, sliding the documents into a sealed folder. The eviction order is active. They have 72 hours. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. I wasn't here to feel. I was here to finalize, to cut, to reclaim. I remembered the day I co-signed that house loan, 2010, spring, just after I received my first bonus. Orville had called near midnight, frantic. The house was slipping into foreclosure. Just until things stabilize, he'd pleaded, hand resting gently over mine. We'll transfer it back to your name after the audit clears. The audit cleared. The transfer never came. Neither did the thank you. They kept the home, and slowly began to erase the person who saved it. The video came to me via an unexpected source, Jonah, a cousin who'd always stayed in the margins of our family drama. He sent no message, just a file. The security footage began with a soft chime. Timestamp 8:03 a.m. Orville opened the front door in a bathrobe, half-eaten toast in one hand, his hair uncombed and his eyes squinting against the morning sun. The sheriff stood calmly on the porch, a sealed envelope in his hand. Mr. Sullivan, the officer said, you have 72 hours to vacate. The property no longer belongs to you. Orville blinked once, then twice, then stared down at the envelope like it might disappear if he looked away. Delora appeared behind him in a silk robe, a porcelain teacup in her hand. When she caught a glimpse of the notice, she froze. The cup slipped from her fingers and shattered against the tile in slow motion, white fragments bouncing like forgotten truths. She didn't pick it up. She didn't move. Inside the house, the television murmured brightly. A morning show segment about how to create lasting gratitude rituals with your loved ones. The irony felt surgical. The officer asked Orville to sign for the notice. He tried. Wrote, "Oh, soul," then paused, scratched it out, and tried again. The second attempt barely resembled a name. His hand shook all the way through it. Outside, the chrysanthemums lining the front path bloomed with oblivious cheer. A neighbor peeked out from behind a curtain, watching everything without blinking. No one stepped forward. No one spoke. Lazero, ever the documentarian, filmed the entire interaction and uploaded it to our extended family group chat. His caption read simply, "Is this real?" No one replied. Not even Maxine with her 3-paragraph emojis. Not even Aunt Rosa, who once sent 10 messages because someone forgot her birthday. This time, the silence was unanimous. I watched the clip from my apartment. Once. Then again. Then one last time, just to be sure the feeling was real. It was. I closed the laptop without flinching. No caption, no call to arms, just the sound of finality clicking shut. I didn't feel joy or triumph. What I felt was colder, more precise, like a courtroom's last sentence. This wasn't about revenge. It was about corrections. For years, they had occupied a space that belonged to me, physically, emotionally, legally. Now, that imbalance is gone. They said I didn't belong, that I wasn't family. And now, by law, neither were they. I poured myself a glass of water, steady and slow, and stood at the window. The morning light fell across the countertop, and for the first time in months, it felt earned. Not stolen, not dimmed. Then my phone buzzed. A single message. From Thessaly. "They've done worse than you know." Attached. A photo of an old family album. The leather cover fraying at the edges. The pages were open wide, exposed. One after another, photos of birthdays, graduations, holidays. Carefully arranged, color-corrected, but none of me. Not one. Not even the blurry one from my high school debate final. The photo Delora once said she'd frame for my dorm room. Gone. Like I had been sliced from the narrative on purpose. I didn't cry, didn't reply. I just stared at that absence, feeling the weight of what it meant. And then I set my phone face down on the table, picked up my glass, and walked into the kitchen. Not out of grief, out of precision. They erased me from every photo, but forgot one napkin I folded. The house was quieter than I remembered. Quieter than silence, if such a thing existed. It didn't creak. It didn't echo. It just held its breath. I stepped through the front door without knocking. There was no one left to answer it anyway. No paintings on the walls. No family photos. No scent of cinnamon candles Delora used to light for guests. Just dust motes turning slowly in the slanted afternoon light, suspended like the breath of a house that had given up trying to be warm. I walked slowly through each room, not to remember, but to confirm. The guest room where I used to sleep during holidays was empty. The kitchen still had the faint outline of where a wall clock had once hung. Even the dining room, where so many performances had taken place, now looked stripped of meaning. No linen runners, no curated centerpieces, only a blank table and 3 stacked chairs. I wasn't here to reclaim anything. I already had. I was here to see if anything had survived. Near the hallway beneath the staircase, I noticed something I'd never paid attention to before. A small wooden cabinet built into the wall, painted the same dull beige as everything else. I reached for the handle and pulled. Inside was a single shoebox, no markings, covered in a soft layer of dust. I brought it to the kitchen counter and lifted the lid. There were only two things inside. The first, a photo. I was maybe 8 years old, my hair in messy pigtails, one front tooth missing, holding a clunky science fair trophy almost half my size. I was grinning wide, chin tilted up, proud and entirely alone. No one else in the photo, just me, framed by a school auditorium curtain. And beneath it, folded carefully like a pressed flower, was a napkin. Pale linen, creased into a swan. Not a replica. Not similar. The same one. The one from that dinner. The one I'd straightened with trembling fingers while the rest of the room looked past me. I'd folded it days earlier, thinking maybe something small and beautiful could anchor me in a place that always made me feel like furniture. They had erased me from the photos, from the albums, from the stories. But this napkin had survived. I held it for a long moment, then folded the lid back over the box and walked out without looking at anything else. Back at my condo, I didn't turn on the overhead lights, just the warm lamp near the bookshelf and a jazz lo-fi playlist I didn't even remember cueing. I placed the box on my kitchen island and opened it again, not to review, just to let it breathe in the right space. I smoothed out the napkin swan and set it at the center of the dining table. Alone, clean, complete. I didn't frame the trophy photo. I didn't need to. The napkin was enough. My phone buzzed. A single envelope icon lit the screen. A letter, handwritten. The envelope was cream-colored, the handwriting tight and curved. Thessaly. Inside, an apology. No excuses, no defense, just a quiet confession. I didn't know how far they'd gone. I should have said something sooner. I'm sorry, Keziah. You deserved better. No flourish. No request for a response. Just a sliver of honesty that didn't ask for redemption. I folded the letter and placed it inside the shoebox, beside the photo. Later that night, Amina arrived. She knocked once and let herself in, like she always had. A bottle of wine in one hand, a tiny orchid in the other. You need more green in here, she said, setting the plant by the window. This place needs new life. We made pasta. Nothing elaborate, just garlic, thyme, olive oil, and conversation. We ate slowly, 2 glasses. One laugh that turned into 3. She didn't ask about the eviction. I didn't talk about Thessaly's letter. Some friendships don't need footnotes. As we cleared the table, she paused beside the swan napkin. You kept this? She asked softly. I nodded. It's the only thing they forgot to take. A beat passed. To build our own tables, I said, raising my glass. She clinked hers to mine. And never begging for a seat again. That night, after the dishes were done and the music faded into quiet, I sat alone in the kitchen. I looked at the swan, still centered, still folded. I didn't touch it to mourn it. I touched it to confirm it was real. They had tried to rewrite the story, but I was still here. I didn't need to burn bridges for warmth. I had built my own fire. I didn't need to slam any doors or set fires to feel free. In the quiet of my own space, with the swan napkin unfolded and the orchid soaking in new sunlight, I realized I was finally untethered. The ones who tried to erase me ended up vanishing from my life instead. Sometimes karma doesn't scream. It simply shows up with a key and lets you walk out whole. And sometimes reclaiming yourself means leaving the wreckage behind without needing anyone to witness your stride. Have you ever had to walk away from the people who raised you just to protect your peace? Share your story in the comments. I read everyone.